Hey US History, welcome to the last lesson of the unit, Isolation and the Great War. So we are now going to talk about the aftermath. We're going to talk about the ever so important Treaty of Versailles, which, spoiler alert, sets the stage for World War II. We are going to talk about Woodrow Wilson's last days as president and how he spent them. And we are going to talk about kind of the big four, the negotiators of the Versailles Treaty. So, with the lines collapsing, the leadership fleeing, quite literally, the Kaiser of Germany literally fled into exile when he realized they were going to lose. And the Germans asked for an armistice or a truce in hopes of getting good peace terms because they weren't ever technically defeated, they just surrendered. However, after the armistice, their hopes proved very empty. The declaration of peace was not in any way merciful to Germany. So let's talk about it. Treaty of Versailles. Technically, the Treaty of Versailles was not the only treaty that ended the Great War. You also have the Treaty of Saint-Germain, signed by the Austrians, and the Treaty of Sèvres, signed by the Ottomans. But the Treaty of Versailles was the one that targeted Germany, and that's the one that receives the most attention. So, Woodrow Wilson announced that he is going to be the one to go to Paris to personally lead negotiations for the Treaty of Versailles. Now, this idea is met with mixed reactions. First of all, people were worried that he was going to be susceptible to public opinion and make hasty decisions. But he believed that a personal appearance, given the fact that he was very famous and well known in Europe, would help preserve his 14 points, which he thought would promote world peace, and would help establish the League of Nations, which he really thought would keep Europe from going to war again. However, he made a mistake. He did not take a bipartisan delegation. He only took members of his own party, the Democrats, which was a very big mistake because in the election of 1918, which was a congressional election, the Democrats lost the House, lost the Senate. Following that point, you have a Republican majority, and quite frankly, they do not agree with Woodrow Wilson. They're also going to be the ones who have to vote to ratify the treaty in order for it to pass in America. But he didn't bring any of them along to consult their opinion. So this was not a good move. So let's talk about the big four, okay? So the big four are President Wilson, France's president, Italy's premier, and Britain's prime minister. So let's write those down. The big four, you've got Woodrow Wilson, USA. You've got, I need to make sure I spell it all right, Premier Georges Clemenceau, who is, here we go, okay, so Georges EAU from France. You've got David Lloyd George, who's the Prime Minister of Great Britain. I'll write GB, but it's Great Britain. And then you also have Vittorio Orlando of Italy. Two T's. And they're the ones negotiating this with Germany. Okay, so Wilson made it clear that the U.S. did not want any territory in return. Wilson does not want to carve up Europe. He probably could have. He could have claimed land in Europe for America, but he didn't want to, which was a good idea. And what he wanted was the acceptance of the 14 points. He wanted peace, but his colleagues, France, Great Britain, and Italy, wanted reparations. They wanted prey. They wanted Germany to pay for what they had done. Now, looking back a couple days ago, did Germany even start the war? Technically, no. It was Serbia and Austria-Hungary that started this whole thing. So why are we blaming Germany? Let's figure it out. So Clemenceau claimed to support the 14 points. He's the French guy, but was more interested in revenge for France than anything else. Conflicts between France and Germany have been happening for hundreds of years. And you've got this mineral-rich coal and iron mining area west of the Rhine River known as Alsace-Lorraine. And this is dating back to a long, long time. Germany got Alsace and Lorraine in 1871, and France wanted it back. Italy, Orlando from Italy, represented a nation that had started as Germany's allies and then stabbed him in the back and gone to the official allies and fought against them. They wanted a large spoils of victory because they had changed sides and they wanted to be rewarded for that. Lloyd George was a master politician. He wanted British control of the seas, although he professed to support, again, the 14 points, but he campaigned for re-election basically saying, like, when he fought to be elected, he said, we're going to make Germany pay for this. And so he wanted to bring this revenge. And so it's peace, but it's very petty. So the Treaty of Versailles is signed June 28th, 1919. And it's nasty. It drastically changes the map of Europe and has very far-reaching consequences. So the Germans were permitted no part in the treaty negotiation. They said, you deal with what we give you. And they were offered a treaty pretty much at gunpoint and forced to sign it. And some of the clauses were a war guilt clause, which basically said that the entire war was Germany's fault. Was it? You can really disagree with that, but they had to sign one that said it was all their fault. Then they said, if Germany's responsible, Germany has to pay the bill. So they demanded these reparation payments, which amounted to more than $30 billion, because Great Britain and France basically said, cool, if it's Germany's fault, Germany pays for it, and they pay for the cost of the entire war, which means Germany now has to pay $30 billion. If you pay $30 billion to someone, you will wreck your economy. And Germany's was already starting to be in shambles because, remember, their leader literally just fled the country. And so this destroys Germany. It leads to poverty and resentment. After the rest of it, only 2 points of the 14 points are negotiated. You have self-determination, which basically says that the peoples of Europe can decide for themselves if they want to be independent. So you create nations such as Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, all based on this. And then you also have the creation of the League of Nations. So Wilson does get his baby created, the League of Nations, which is supposed to enable a place where countries can talk about things instead of just fight each other in war. But a lot of these new countries, like Yugoslavia, aren't very good. They were originally created as like the kingdom of the Serbs, Croats, and the Slovenes, which is not really good for national unity. And the Germans now are finding themselves living under foreign flags. They can't do anything on their own, which doesn't help with them and actually makes them very upset, which Hitler uses to launch World War II. Wilson and the others were not unaware of this problem, but they thought that the League of Nations would fix things. First of all, Wilson thought that they would join the League of Nations. But in order for the Treaty of Versailles to be ratified in America, now Congress has to vote on it. And this is what happens. So you have this majority leader. We're back in the U.S. now. And you have this Senate majority leader, Henry Cabot Lodge. And he and Wilson hate each other's guts. Hate them. They have nothing else in common. And most Democrats in the Senate naturally sided with their party leader, Wilson, but the Democrats were in the minority. The Republicans were split into two camps. Okay? So for your Republicans, you had two camps. One were the irreconcilables, who said absolutely nothing to do with Europe. No League of Nations, no nothing. And then you have your reservationists. So this is no Europe. We want to be on our own. And this is the reservationists accepted the treaty, but with reservations. America's Security Lodge believed, Henry Cabot Lodge says, is best protected by the fact that we have an ocean. Let's not let anybody near us. So now you have this debate because the Congress has to vote, the Senate has to vote to accept the treaty, and right now they're not accepting it. And so Wilson is opposing compromising on any of the treaty's provisions, actually decides to take it to the people, and in 22 days travels 80,000 miles and gives 40 speeches. It's 2 speeches a day. 80,000 miles. And remember, the cars didn't go that fast at this point of time, so he's probably taking trains. And this almost kills him. He actually has a stroke in Colorado. They have to cancel the rest of the tour. He gets paralyzed on one side, and basically for 7 months he can't meet with his cabinet. Most of the country is run by his advisors and his wife. And when public and administration pressure finally brought a reconsideration of the treaty in March 1920, it thought it would amend it, but Wilson fought any change. He actually sides with the irreconcilable, saying, don't change the treaty, either take it or leave it. And they choose to leave it. So the United States never actually signs the Treaty of Versailles, which technically means that they were still at war with Germany, and they would be until 1921, when a totally different president, Warren G. Harding, facilitates this agreement, basically a joint resolution that ends war. So technically the United States is still at war with Germany until 1921 because they can't vote on the Treaty of Versailles. Wilson can't get it to pass. Also, the United States never joins the League of Nations because the Senate doesn't see the value in it. The Senate, remember, they hate Wilson. They're Republicans, majority. So that's all you get. So they don't join the League of Nations. They don't sign the Treaty of Versailles. And Wilson ultimately kind of fades because he was so injured, he was so tired. And his baby, the 14 points in the League of Nations, never became a thing accepted by America. So now you have a new guy, Warren G. Harding, who some people say the only thing that he had going for him was that he looked like a president. He was no crusader. He was a card player, and he enjoyed opening things. He enjoyed the face of the presidency more than the policy. And so it kind of illustrates the changing mood of the country. America wants to go back to that kind of isolation. We kind of want to retreat back, which... well, we get to the 1920s and a couple of things happen. All right, so this is actually the end of our chapter. You do have a Junopod for today. Tomorrow you're going to have a review activity. And then Thursday at 11:30, we're going to have a live meeting. We can play Kahoot, we can play Quizlet, we can do all sorts of stuff like that. Okay. Later today, I'll be able to post some Quizlet resources. I'll email them to you, but they'll also be posted on your Google Classroom. All the videos are going to go on the Google Classroom, and as soon as I can, I'll be able to get PDFs of Chapter 19 on the Google Classroom for you as well. Your test is going to go live after our review session on Thursday, and you can take it anytime Thursday or Friday. All right, but you do have to take it Thursday or Friday. Once you open it, that's it. You have to take it. If you leave for any reason, you can't go back. Okay? Know that. Know that very well. Hear it. Follow it. All of that. Okay? So, this is the end. World War I has ended. They call it the Great War. It was not a great war. It was a terrible war. It got nothing done, and it was terrible. Okay? Terrible. But it happened. So we learned about it. All right? I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.